Hey, it's me, Big P, and I wanted to go over the final version of my cock experiment here on the Assassin with the Uul-Netol's Embrace. I spent the better part of the weekend testing and tinkering and pushing this build to try and do what I thought would be kind of like a really strong, bursty bosser. I don't think I've exactly gotten there, and honestly don't think that the way that I've set this up is really ideal, but I did learn a lot about the axe, in particular how it lends itself to this sort of double cock build, because there's a lot of mechanics at work here, particularly with the axe itself. And you know, even though I would probably consider this overall a failed build, and there's probably a number of ways, a number of mistakes. I tried to go in too many directions at once. I am glad I did it because I ended up learning a lot about the axe and kind of figuring out how I would want to do this ideally. I mean, long story short, I wish I was an Inquisitor, but I just played a cast on crit Inquisitor for a month straight, so kind of forced myself to do a bunch of stuff on Assassin, so that kind of it ended up being a little suboptimal. I mean, I'll go as I get into the gear and the skill tree. You'll see that I haven't actually min-maxed it, but there's a lot of value here, I think, in seeing exactly how it works. So I thought I'd make a video on it. So we're going to run a map, and so you can see how it works and how far it can go. This is tier 16. And particularly, this has an interesting map mod that I kind of want to go over before we even get into it, so you can really see. So attacks have a 25% chance to inflict bleeding when hitting cursed enemies, and you trigger your Bone Nova. That is the second cast on crit trigger when you hit a bleeding enemy. Now, initially, I thought that hexproof would completely brick our build. You need to have a curse on an enemy to get a chance to inflict bleeding, and then when you hit that bleeding enemy with another attack, it will proc this. But I think it was 2 patches ago they made a change to hexproof, so that hexproof means that although the monsters aren't affected by the curse, they are still technically cursed. And so I feel like it's this like a specific sort of change that was made for like edge cases like this, where like our build would be totally bricked on pretty much any boss that had hexproof, or any map that had hexproof. Really, we'd only be using half of our cocks, and it's not really, you know, something you can really get around. But I would notice I would be attacking a boss that was indeed hexproof and still be proccing my Blade Blast at regular intervals. And I thought, how the hell is this happening? They shouldn't have anything. But long story short, it does count as a cursed enemy, and so the build, at least mechanically, will work even against hexproof enemies, or, you know, however you want to put it. That being said, there's a number of reasons why I don't think this build will actually be able to do. I mean, ideally, I wanted to do stuff like Maven and, like, you know, the 5-way invitations, or the crazier invitations. But let's get into the map and start running it to see. So yeah, if you pay attention to the two, I'll have these on the bar so you can see the Blade Fall should be triggering far more often than the Blade Blast. But the Bone Nova is actually kind of interesting in how it works, how it procs attacks, or spells rather, because the initial Nova does the damage and then it shoots out 9 projectiles, I believe it is. And so one Bone Nova can actually proc multiple Blade Blasts, which is kind of, you'll see it like double up. Oh, let's do it Delirious. So please hold your applause while we're mapping. Oh my god, and it's Al has me too. I'm definitely gonna die. So one of the biggest issues I had with this map, or rather this build, is that it's quite squishy, which is not a good thing for a bossing character. Look at these guys. Not clearing all that well, but you can see, you know, it is doing something. What else did I want to mention? So I feel like I don't like how inconsistent and conditional the Assassin is in terms of... I'm not even going to loot this map. So So it looks like a pretty great mapper. It's like pretty clean. Doesn't really have much in terms of defensive layers. Very low physical damage reduction. Nothing really else going on besides we do have the elemental leech from a cluster jewel, and we are using corrupted soul because you don't get to use it as well as the Inquisitor might. Because Pious Path is just one of the most broken ascendancy points in the game. It's pretty awesome. Basically all Corrupted Soul is doing in this build is just one-shot mitigation. But that actually doesn't really apply that much. I feel like I'm getting one-shot a lot. You know, there's just not a lot that we can do. Oh, and these are Cyrus minions too. Like, I'm not even gonna bother. I kinda, you know, I don't even have level 20 whatever gems. We'll come back for that. Maybe I mean, I've been running Cast on Death Portal with how inconsistent this build has been feeling. I think big mistake I was making was I wasn't using Concentrated Effect on... Am I using it in both now? So I swapped a couple things around. I was running Increased Critical Strikes in both links because the build like this, like, even generally, if you're using one cast on crit setup, you want as consistent critical strike chance as you can get, so that you're actually doing what your build is supposed to do. Does it survive? Okay, we can do well here. Again, Inspired Learning is really carrying the build during mapping, and will not be relevant for things like Maven or things like the multi-boss fights that I really planned on having this do. So that's a little bit disappointing. But yeah, I just kind of wanted a build that would be able to use something like, well, a Headhunter would be ideal, but they're insanely expensive this league. I would highly recommend just settling for an Inspired Learning, because at least in the ultimatums, you'll really be able to... Even Cyrus is bothering me in this ultimatum, and are we really going to do it? I don't think so. I think we are going to take a death at some point here. I guess it's worth keeping in mind that stuff should be dying way earlier, because I have elemental weakness on hit, but that is just not working right now in this map. And we are a multi-element setup. I'm converting half of my physical damage to cold with a Hrim Sorrow, and I think I anointed Magmatic Strikes. I was using Fizz to Lightning. Here's another issue of a cast on crit build. Be it Inquisitor or Assassin, you need to actually be hitting something, which can be a little nerve-wracking if you don't want to step in these big one-shot circles. I'll go all the way for it. I mean, I just hit 90, and I don't think I'm going to push this build much further. Oh, yo. It's very fun to play. It's super satisfying, and you know, when it works, it works. Even in terms of boss damage, when it all goes off, it's pretty cool. Like that, it's not pretty cool. I think what happened there a lot is because I have to use Concentrated Effect in the Bladefall trigger. That affects our Cyclone, and so actually it's a non-zero impact on, you know, touching stuff with your axe to get your whole damage going. So, you know, not the greatest. Let's see. And the boss, I can't imagine it's gonna go well. Yeah, no. See, so I don't even know if I'm gonna... I mean, I'll try and finish it because, you know, luck, just so that we can see, but this is probably one of the worst bosses I could have picked in retrospect, because I'm constantly going to be feeding her Soul Eater. I do not have good Chaos Res, so I'm just going to leave it, because, you know, the build really is not great. It's interesting, though, and I'm glad I tried it, because it makes me kind of think about how I want to tinker the Inquisitor version I'm going to try later in the league, probably near the end, once I have all my challenges done and I'm more willing to take apart my Inquisitor and kind of swap stuff around, because I've been just kind of throwing currency and time at this build, and it hasn't gotten that much better. But yeah, let's go over what I got going here. I don't know what to start with. I mean, I guess the axe. So, so something to note is that an axe like this, the flat physical damage that we're giving up by not being Inquisitor really hurts. Battle Mage would be incredible for just this huge chunk of physical damage is added to her spells. Even though something like Blade Blast only has 50% effectiveness of added damage, and Blade Fall only has 90, it's still a huge chunk. For comparison with the other, whatchamacallit, cock items that you can use this with. So Limb Split is a popular one. I like this one a lot, but I mean it's Cauterizer, the faded version, but it's like a level 13 like axe. You don't get that much increased even after you use the prophecy on it. You don't get that much. It is better for I will say that the Uul-Netol's Embrace is pretty much strictly an attack-based axe. The increased physical damage is only local on the weapon itself. It doesn't affect your Blade Blast. And the reduced attack speed, interestingly enough, keeps our attack speed very low, even with max frenzy charges up. It doesn't really go up above 4. And the standard attacks per second breakpoint, I believe, is around 6 attacks per second. So you don't really need to worry about things like cooldown recovery. You have a bit of space there, particularly because you want to like trigger ideally a blade fall or 2 for every blade blast you do. Obviously, it doesn't actually translate to you calculating it. You're just cycloning through packs and blowing shit up. What was I talking about? So Namhu's Flame, this is better in terms of flat damage, but even the highest damage roll on the 247 to 369, you compare this to 428 to 717. That flat damage that we're missing out on really hurts. And I did a little bit of testing on Inquisitor, and you can immediately tell the difference. But yeah, I mean, on a cast on crit build, a spell build, where you're giving up both your item slots, which could be like a cost breeze or like a really cool shield, you really do notice that's like, yeah, it's a lot of good damage because you have 2 6 links, but it's just kind of like not being used to its full potential, more or less. Speaking of not being used to its full potential, we're doing some very scuffed converting. So I have a Pandemonius that hilariously has magmatic strikes anointed here to kind of try and convert as much physical damage as we can. I actually had Fizz to Lightning in my links here for the Blade Blast, but that wasn't really doing much. I mean, just because you convert it to an element, you can convert it to an element doesn't necessarily mean you should. I mean, using a Herald of Ash and a Hatred here just because it works really well with physical damage, both in terms of spells and attack. I guess it is worth mentioning that your Cyclone actually has a very respectable DPS. Like, almost like tooltip DPS, it's better than your spells, but I mean, I think it's your spells counted per blade, and you're doing like dozens of blades per second, so don't really pay attention to that. But I mean, there's a lot of damage on that axe, so. And the Hermsar, I bought this for like 2.5x. It has life, it's double corrupted, life and curse enemies with elemental weakness on hit. Because I am using a multi-element setup, this is kind of nice, not to mention that you do need some form of curse to activate the axe. You can't just hope for it to just happen. I initially thought that Maim was like counting as the bleed, but like I said before, hexproof enemies are actually affected by a curse, not like the actual reduction in terms of resistances that LE weakness would normally give, but it will still proc a blade blast when you want it to. Belt, I just like found something in a tab that I was looking for. It's not really necessary. You could go Torrent's Reclamation, but like I said before, cooldown recovery is not really necessary with the Uul-Netols because you don't actually hit those high attack speed breakpoints unless you're using Headhunter and or Inspired Learning, but I don't really care about shit like that. And it's just got I can gain phasing and hinder enemies on it, like it's just whatever, nothing really insane. Bought these boots for like an axe, I think, just because it had life. This is a good place to get a lot of decks, because you will need it for, I guess it's really Blade Fall and Blast that are the, that's going to determine exactly how much decks you need. It's about a little over 150. I think it's like 153 or 155 or something. And Pandemonius gives you decks as well. For the fire version, you'd probably use the Ephagon, but Pandemonius kind of does double duty in terms of cold penetration against chilled enemies, blinding chilled enemies on hit, and ensuring that you chill on every single hit. Just a kind of nice offensive and defensive amulet to invest in. Obviously, because a lot of my damage is fire, it's not actually that good, but either way. Ring, I just wanted some life, and I crafted this very quickly, and it's nothing special. Circle of Anguish, buff effect and reduced reservation are nice, but there's like I mean, the variety of Circle of Anguishes that you can get is pretty like crazy. So I mean, I don't know. I'm not. I maybe should use Herald of Ice instead, but I don't know. Herald of Ash, the way that it works in terms of gain 15% of your physical damage as extra fire damage, just really lends itself nice to both Blade Fall and Blade Blast. The chest I lifted off my old build, I was using Blood Rage on my left click here, but on something like an assassin with 8% physical damage reduction, that goes up to like just under 30. It's a non-zero amount of degen when we're already kind of a squishy build, so I ended up opting for, I mean, you still want frenzy charges, because it's just a lot of good damage and kind of speeds up your attacks just a little bit more. In the helmet, I was trying to roll a +1 power charge helmet, but ended up settling for this. Gain accuracy rating equal to your strength is like kind of okay, I guess. We're not 100% chance to hit. That's another thing that Ephagon does really well. If you can blind nearby enemies, you'll get hits cannot be evaded by blinded enemies, which effectively will always be working for your Cyclone because you're only hitting stuff nearby with your Cyclone. And jewels, I said we have Corrupted Soul, but it's not really doing as much as it would on Inquisitor. Here's where we put our Inspired Learning. You kind of, it's almost the same tree. You kind of need to come up here, get your power charge stuff, because that's a big way to scale damage on Assassin, particularly because, like I said before, we're a spell build that doesn't really scale spell damage at all. It's kind of embarrassing and weird. What else? The cluster jewel here, I would roll the medium clusters for like area damage, like magnifier or crit chance or whatever the hell they are. I just don't care enough to spend more money on this build, particularly because I feel like it's going in too many different directions and it isn't very focused. And again, Inquisitor could probably do it better. But yeah, Doriani's Lesson is very nice. This is one of the only ways, probably the only way to get elemental damage leeches his life. Prismatic Heart too. Yeah, this is like, I basically just threw chaos at it until I got the lesson, and then just some flat damage to spells, which is actually not that good because of the added damage effectiveness. This was like, it looks like a 4-prop damage spell, but it's I don't know, it's not that good. There's a decent jewel here, you know, whatever. Overall, I'm kind of disappointed, but you know, I'm not gonna dwell on it too much. I'm not going to waste too much more time on it. I'm going to go over my links, not because I think they're good, but just because I want to go over the thought process and, you know, just what happened. So in the main chess piece, this is how you set up your blades with your Blade Fall. That's Cyclone, Cast on Crit, Blade Fall, Inspiration, which does double duty. Since you can't proc it with this, you have to get your Inspiration charges from here. And this is kind of what I'm using in lieu of increased critical strikes in Link. I was using that a lot, but after a certain point, I felt like I didn't really need it. You kind of do need it. Bottled Faith is just to bring your base crit up by a bunch, would definitely be something to look into. And just, you know, consistency is everything in a cast on crit build. But that is also true of where your blades are falling. So for the longest time, I kind of was like feeling like, hey, I feel like my blades are just blasting everywhere and not really focusing on the boss where I need it to. So concentrate effect in a level 1 spell cascade. help to do that. You want as little area of effect as you can on your spell cascade, so you just keep it at level 1, and even you don't even quality it, just to keep those blades falling tight. There's so many people doing Blade Fall, Blade Blast. I feel like I'm like not. I should have been doing this. Conk effect also helps kind of keep it tight. Am I using? Oh wow, look at that! 2 increased critical strikes. Okay, so we were on a 5 link there. I guess conk, or what was I using? Crit damage? I mean, multiplier would be nice. Assassin's Mark is probably a better curse to use. Wow, that's fucking cringe. I don't remember what else I was using. I guess it was either conk effect or... Huh. Where's that damn jewel? What was I using? Anyway, it doesn't matter. I guess you could use power charge on crit because you can do more damage per power charge. Maybe I'll throw that in there and try that for a bit. You know, I don't know how much I'm going to be playing this build, and I'm kind of tired because I stayed up a bunch trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. But yeah, the blade, the 7 link here now is Blade Blast, Inspiration, which you're triggering here. Awakened Added Fire, just because it's just a lot of fire damage on top of a physical spell. Cast on crit, increased crit, and power charge on crit. You can change this for maybe LA Focus? I don't know. I can't really remember what I was using. I was kind of swapping gems like every map just to like see clearly, because I swapped out a gem that I probably shouldn't have. This doesn't work, okay? You're not going to increase your crit twice, so don't do that. The Herald of Ash, this is where I keep my auras, Enlighten, Hatred, Precision, pretty basic stuff. Flame Dash, Arcane Surge, Second Wind, and an Ice Golem to get your crit and accuracy up just a little bit. Pretty basic there. And we have Cast on Death Portal, the soft core special, and a pretty low level Molten Shell here to just hopefully not die, but as you saw in the map, doesn't really work that well. So yeah, overall, Uul-Netol's Embrace has kind of some cool mechanics built into it. Whether or not it's better for even on Inquisitor, I feel like it's a bit of a stretch. I'm thinking maybe going for the whole elemental conversion route on the Assassin kind of really gimped what I could do. I could have had a much more focused like poison variant probably. Assassin can do that really well. Whereas the Inquisitor, I kind of have my stuff mixed up. I'm doing a physical damage spell on my Inquisitor when I probably should be doing the elemental stuff there. And I have a elemental conversion assassin here that probably should have just kept the blades physical. And yeah, I just kind of wanted to share my journey with this. I'll leave a paste bin in the description, but please don't follow it by any means. It's really not that good. I'm trying to think if I left anything out, but I'm feeling real woozy and not too confident or happy with how this build turned out. So I don't want to dwell on it that much more. I'm probably going to take a little bit of a break before participating in BPL 4, the Badger Private League, this weekend. So I'll probably post a video on my build plan for that, although it's probably not going to be super interesting. It's a 4-day league and it's group found, so there's probably not that much interesting stuff like this that I can pull off there. But hopefully by the end of the league I'll have a more solid version using the Uul-Netol's Embrace, because as much as I like the other cock rockers that you can use here, I feel like Uul-Netol's Embrace is kind of like an underrated one, or at least just an overlooked one, despite having the most flat physical damage that you, again, can use for Battle Mage. So look forward to that. Thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.